Breaking today, Prince Harry under dramatic financial pressure after his devastating courtroom loss to the Daily Mail, as Elton John, the one man with enough money to save this guy, finally says enough. Finally says, no, Duke, I'm not your bank. This incredible reporting coming from Paula Froelich of Paula Froelich Uncensored. She is going to reveal all of the astonishing inside story behind this. But first, let me just take you through what she has revealed, because as I say, it's very significant given these costs. These costs could be up to 50 million. She writes, Elton John may finally have had enough with the wayward spare. Elton and Prince Harry have been close for decades due to the pop singer's close friendship with Princess Diana. After Diana's death, John took it upon himself to be a godfather-like father figure to her sons and formed a close bond with Harry. He performed at Harry and Meghan's wedding, stood behind the couple when they took their freedom flight after ditching the royal family and their royal duties, loaned them his private jet to come and see him in the south of France in 2019, as well as Ibiza, and donated to Harry's now defunct Archewell Foundation. But the loss to the Daily Mail may have broken the bond, or at least weakened it. Because finally, it seems, Elton has had enough of the wayward and hot-tempered prince and has told Harry, I am not an ATM. That's according to Paula's sources. The problem started when John introduced Harry to his lawyer, the slippery, slimy, my words, and I've come up against him in court, David Sherborne. Harry then joined the lawsuit against the Daily Mail, accusing it of illegally obtaining information, and helped bring in other defendants such as poor Baroness Doreen Lawrence, a woman who lost her son to a racist murder. She didn't need this. While John may have seen the writing on the wall in December when the claimants desperately tried to settle with the paper, they white-knuckled it through the disastrous trial, which was especially damaging for Prince Harry, who came off as pompous, petulant, and most importantly, untruthful during his testimony. But it was Harry's bad behaviour before and after the ruling came down that really shocked Elton John. Paula is told that Harry, facing a massive funding shortfall for Invictus, had stopped by Elton and his husband David Furnish's place in the south of France to ask for money before arriving in London. John, already aware that he would be on the hook for the majority of the legal bills should the claimants lose, was not interested in donating, especially as he knew he was facing a massive payout in the event that the group would not win their claims. Harry asked Elton to donate to Invictus Birmingham, my insider said. Harry feels John brought him into this whole lawsuit and therefore should help him out with Invictus. Elton is not a bank, my source added. Elton said no, and Harry was very hurt. But then the court swatted down all 97 claims from Harry, John, and the other claimants, and Harry made his second bigger blunder by issuing a rash, dramatic, and out-of-line statement attacking the judge in the case. And by the way, Elton John didn't sign on to that statement. Everyone should be very clear on that. And this attack will likely have severe implications on the cost of the trial, Paula reports, and how much Elton will have to pony up. This is not the first time Harry has been annoyed with John, as he wrote in his memoir Spare after hearing that the Benny and the Jets singer wanted to serialise his autobiography in the Daily Mail. I mean, he did. The Duke had no choice but to voice his concerns. Harry asked the multi-Grammy Award winner why he had chosen a publication he claimed had made his life miserable. The singer's response was that he wanted people to read the book, forcing Harry to back off. I loved him, I'll always love him, and I also didn't want to spoil the holiday, Harry added. Well, Paula Froelich, great reporting firstly. Secondly, much more than the holiday has just been spoiled, because Elton John has a lot of money, right? But as that anecdote proves, he's also a much more practical man when it comes to all of this stuff. He wasn't really on a particular moral mission in the way that Prince Harry was. He wanted to deal with what he saw as an illegality amidst the Daily Mail, move on, but also still work with the Daily Mail on projects like the serialization of his autobiography. And I have some understanding of that, Paula, because I actually got to know Elton John pretty well in my mainstream media career. And remember, I was one of the biggest critics in the mainstream media of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. But he'd still sit down with me. He still invited me to the world premiere of his big film. And I'm not saying he was doing it for altruistic reasons. He was doing it because he understood the media game. He knows how it works. He knows how you have to do these deals, keep people on side. And to me, Harry fundamentally misunderstood what this was all about for Elton John. And I don't think he is just going to continue coughing up millions and millions and millions of pounds here. He will want to take the loss and move on. And that's the problem for Harry, because what's Harry going to move on to? What does he have to move on to? Nothing.
No, you're absolutely right. But the other issue is, Dan, it's about maturity. Harry is still basically an angry 13-year-old acting like it in all ways, saying, I said this is right. How dare you question me? We saw that throughout the trial. And then the other issue is, Justice Nicklin, the judge that Harry attacked, is allowed to uncap the amount that the Daily Mail can get. We'll find out on July 29th. So attacking a judge who could basically give the Daily Mail a lot more, tens of millions more, is not smart. And Harry's statement by itself pretty much could have cost Elton John $10 million. Now, I don't care how good of friends we are. If you cost me $10 million by not knowing when to shut your trap, we're not friends anymore.
And Paula, Harry keeps on going around making promises that he can't afford. So immediately after this one meeting with David Sherborne, he says, oh, well, I'm not going to think about this for the rest of my trip. I'm not going to think about it for the rest of my trip. But he does, Paula, brief the Guardian newspaper that Doreen Lawrence is not going to have to foot any of the legal bill. Harry says he is protective of the social campaigner, will not see her out of pocket. The Guardian reports, and this clearly is direct briefing, by the way, from Liam Maguire, I would argue, or Harry's legal team, says it is understood that whatever the outcome, Lawrence, who was persuaded to join the legal action by Prince Harry and his legal team, will not have to pay any share of the costs of the failed case. Nobody, least of all the Duke, who is very protective over Doreen, is going to see her out of pocket, said a source familiar with the matter. Okay, then. Are you paying up, Harry? Are you paying the millions that Doreen might be on the hook for if the rulings and the costs battle don't go your way? Or are you prepared to take the positive publicity in the Guardian newspaper while expecting Elton John to pay the cost for Doreen Lawrence too? My suggestion, Paula, is that it would be the latter, because Harry is not a man who is proven to dip into his own pocket on things. I mean, remember the recent example? Oh, I've donated £1 million to children in need, and it was trumpeted by the BBC, and he got all of the positive publicity. Emerged in recent weeks. That money didn't come from Harry's own pocket. It came from another charity. So I would argue that actually Harry has now boxed himself into even more of a corner by publicly pronouncing that he will pay Doreen Lawrence's costs. I mean, he cannot afford this.
Well, Harry brought Doreen on, and the only reason she kept going on with this case is because of Harry. You'll remember when he gave evidence in the trial, and then Elizabeth Hurley gave evidence, and he was supposed to stay the entire day to watch and support Elizabeth Hurley, and then mysteriously left over lunch and ran over to Parliament. And a lot of people were saying he's there to shore up Doreen Lawrence and say, no, we've got this. It doesn't matter. Back me. If we win, you get money and we are proven right, and I will get you if we lose. So, it was kind of a win-win for Doreen. She also is the one who signed the statement with Harry, because what does she have to lose? Nothing. And Harry is just, he has no concept of money. To be fair, I have been hearing that Meghan was concerned about this case. And of course, these claimants did try to settle at the end of December last year, right through Christmas. They were trying to settle with the Daily Mail, and the Daily Mail was like, no, absolutely not. We want everything public. And Meghan was concerned because she actually understands outflow inflow, bank accounts, whereas Harry has no concept of it. I don't think he's ever carried cash before in his life. I doubt he carries cash right now. And he doesn't get that, yes, you may have 20 million in the bank, but that 20 million is not going to last very long when your expenditures every year are 5 million. And now you've got X amount of millions right now that you may have to push out. It's very difficult.
It really is. And unfortunately, Paula, or maybe fortunately, because we're seeing, I think, the true nature of how Prince Harry operated over the course of this case and how his team operated. And I would say they were bully boys, and they're being called out now. There was an astonishing revelation from Camilla Long, the Star Sunday Times columnist. Now, she's a top journalist here, Paula, and she's a tough journalist. I know Camilla a little bit from my time when I was at News UK, and she's not someone you mess around with, but she's also incredibly kind. And she revealed that she was actually bullied and berated in court by Prince Harry's team because he wasn't happy with the tone of some of her previous coverage in regards to him claiming that he was a liar. Well, I would argue if you're a liar and a journalist calls you out as a liar, you've got to cop it. But you certainly don't send your bully boy to go and harass a top female journalist who is covering a trial while sitting in court. It is highly, highly unprofessional and actually shocking behavior. I think if the judge had been aware of it, he probably would have stepped in. But I just want to tell you what she said, Paula. This was in her column on Sunday, the first time that she revealed it. She wrote, a group of activists had persuaded themselves it was necessary to do almost anything to bully, and I think she used that word purposefully, Paula, because she's not someone who would use a word like that if she didn't mean it, to bully whoever they wanted, to allege whatever they wanted, to use as much money as they wanted, to crush a decent paper because they disagreed with that paper politically and therefore thought they had the moral high ground. No one was off limits, even journalists covering the case. And she reveals, on the first day of the trial, Harry's PR man swaggered up to me to tell me Harry didn't like the tone of one of my pieces. I had suggested the prince might be a liar. She added, who is Harry to enforce what is acceptable to think and what isn't? He doesn't even live here. If his team had time to try and bully me, use of that word again, Paula, what would they do to other, more vulnerable people, the emotional, weak celebs he lured into this case? Or Doreen Lawrence, what does her life look like now that a share of the £50 million legal bill is hanging over her head? And that, to me, Paula, was a pretty astonishing revelation. Like, she is totally right. Who the hell does Harry think he is to bully journalists covering a trial in court? And I would argue he is very lucky that Camilla Long didn't raise that with Justice Nicklin during the course of the trial.
100%. The other thing is, I do actually feel quite bad for Liam McGuire, the PR man, who was sent out constantly to do Harry's bidding and, has come off as a bit of a bully himself. I have also been at the other end of the stick with Liam, so much so that I told the American PR team I would never deal with him again. And that if he wanted to lie, he could lie to someone else. And just
Good on you.
And just because he didn't realize it was a lie still doesn't make it not a lie.
Because also, Paula, if you are lying time and again for your client because your client lies to you, that's on you. And let's be honest, that's why virtually every PR who has worked for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle ends up leaving in some roundabout way. As a PR professional, it is virtually impossible to do your job if you are representing clients who lie to you.
Yes. And if you have no relationship with the press, where else are you going to work ever again when the press thinks of you as a bullying liar? It's very difficult. The other issue that I don't think Harry understands is that once you are a known liar, you therefore have no reputation to defend. In the States, it's going to be very difficult for him to ever sue for libel now because, again, you cannot, as a public person, it's very difficult to sue for libel in general, but you cannot, as a public person, sue when you don't have a reputation to defend. So Harry blew up his spot in more ways than one.
Yeah, indeed. Although I note, Paula, he's never actually tried it in the US, has he? It's very ironic that a
He
man who
can't.
has chosen to leave a particular country because he seems to hate the country, hate its institutions that he is a part of, constantly tries to change the country that he has turned his back on, while actually doing absolutely nothing in the country which goes much more against what he claims he wants. Now, I'm totally on the USA's side of this, free
Mm.
speech, the First Amendment. I love it, but Harry doesn't. He hates it.
Of course he hates it because he can't sue. The case that was brought against the Daily Mail never would have made it to day one in the States. Absolutely not. And the other issue that Harry and Elton have right now is, will the insurers actually cough up? The Times did a wonderful, there are two things the Times did besides Camilla Long's great piece. Number one, they did full coverage of exactly how much it's going to cost, how much the insurers were on the hook for, but they also noted that the insurers could say, we've watched the behavior during trial. This was not a valid case, and so therefore we're not going to pay. They can also say, retroactively look at Harry's behavior afterwards, we are not going to pay. So they have a really, really big issue. Now, the other big issue that Harry has is that there was an op-ed done in the Times of London, which is, as you know, the paper of record for the UK. And the op-ed basically said Harry needs to step down as a counselor for state,
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
meaning get rid of his titles. So when you've got the paper of record saying get rid of his titles, you got a real problem.
Yeah, and I mean, that was such a significant moment this week, Paula. I thought one of the most significant moments of the week, actually, because, again, for people who don't understand, the Times in the UK, so in America, you call it the Times of London to distinguish it from the New York Times, is the establishment's newspaper, is the newspaper that would never call for this type of thing unless it was a strongly held view that this not only should happen, but could happen. And I think it was a devastating moment for Prince Harry, and a moment that has maybe been overlooked in a lot of ways because so much happened this week, but was hugely significant. Paul, I do have to ask you, though, because my God, you've sometimes got to feel for King Charles, because Andrew and Fergie, they're not going away, Paula. They are not going away. So we saw Andrew back in the saddle this month, or this week, excuse me, after a 6-month horse riding ban ends, but the board royal won't be able to enjoy it for long. So this was the reporting by Matt Wilkinson, the well-connected royal editor of The Sun, who wrote, shamed Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is back in the saddle after royal aides banned him from horse riding for months. The 66-year-old former prince was pictured riding for the first time since he was exiled in February. Our pictures show him wearing a blue shirt on his hour-long ride this week across the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. But Andrew's return to the saddle is a brief one because the horses sent from Windsor by the King to give Andrew something to do are on a short loan. An insider telling the newspaper he's bored rigid. So even getting his horse for a few days is better than sitting around doing nothing. He was regularly riding when he lived in Windsor because it gave him a chance to get outside. And then also reports that Sarah Ferguson could be intending to try and come back to the UK too. So, Paula, it's interesting, isn't it, that even though the focus this week has very much been on the travails of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the Andrew and Fergie issue for the King and the British monarchy does not go away.
No, it doesn't. And what are they going to do? What's the king going to do? He's basically done what he should have done with Harry, which is put his brother in exile, domestic exile. And, there's nothing much he can do. As for Fergie, do I think she'll come back? I'm sure she'll slip in and out at some point, but Fergie's worst nightmare is to be questioned by the police and to go through what Andrew is going through. Could she live in Portugal? Could she live in Switzerland? At some point, people's generosity does run out. But, I mean, these are things that they're going to have to deal with. The only thing that they should be concerned about from Fergie is really if she decides to write the book and get paid for it.
Yeah, I mean, Paula, I have to be honest with you. It's a tantalizing proposition. I know people
It
might be
is.
annoyed with me, but I want to read it. I want to read it.
Of course. I mean, listen, people forget. They're like, oh, Fergie's so disgusting. She's so this, she's so that. However, she was good friends with Princess Diana. She saw everything. She was there, part of the Annus Horribilis with the Queen. And then you have the Ruthie Henderson book where
Ruthie Henschel.
talking about Ruthie Henschel. Thank you. Her book talking about her affair with Prince Edward. And Sarah looking at her and going, get out now while you still can. We all want the story behind that.
Yeah, and look, people
just...
don't like it, Paula. People don't like to hear it. But the late Queen Elizabeth II loved Fergie. And after the death of Prince Philip, she did come back into the fold. So she's got stories from the late Queen's final days too. What I want to know, Paula, though, would Fergie actually be prepared to tell the truth about what the Queen really felt about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, for example? It's a tantalizing proposition, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But it doesn't go away, is my point. But Paula Froelich, thank you for being here. Thank you for all of your brilliant exclusive reporting this week on Paula Froelich Uncensored. Really recommend people subscribe to both the YouTube channel and Paula Froelich Uncensored on Substack, because then, of course, you avoid the algorithm and you get it straight to your inbox, which is something I'm encouraging people to do, Paula, because we've got all of this government censorship coming of the algorithm here in the UK, which is a whole other terrifying possibility for discussion on another day. But thank you so much for your work. That is Paula Froelich of Paula Froelich Uncensored.